Hey guys, what's up? This is GaLm, and welcome to a very late PAX 2016 video. I was trying to do this the week I came back, but that was the week that I got very sick. I could hardly get out of bed, and then after I could actually start getting out of bed, I could hardly talk. And then I started coughing a lot, and I was just like, okay, you know what? We're gonna wait until my voice is better, I'm not coughing all the time, I'm still not 100%, but I'm a lot better than I was a few weeks ago. So it is now time for me to talk a little bit about my PAX 2016 experience. More specifically, we're gonna be talking about some of the games I checked out, because this year's PAX was really good for games to check out, at least in comparison to the years that I've gone before. So this is like my third time going to PAX East, and in all the other years beforehand, or well, you know, the 2 years I've been going, every time I checked out indie games, a lot of them would be kind of either really early in development or kind of not really in my line of interest for whatever reason. Maybe they were super artsy, and not really a lot of gameplay, or maybe the gameplay was just not something I agreed with. But this year was friggin' different. This year I saw so many games I was like, ooh, I want to play that, but then I couldn't because a lot of them were being filled up with people every time I went around to check them out. And so I only really got a chance to play like 5 games, but I did see tons and tons of cool games on the floor. So the first game that we're going to be talking about is the one that I think I was the most excited out of all the games that I ended up playing, and it is called Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight, at least from what I have played and what I have read, is a horror multiplayer title where one player is playing a killer and the other players are playing as survivors. And this isn't like Evolve or The Hidden, where the players are hunting the killer down and trying to shoot them and it's an all-out battle. No, this is more like a horror movie. That killer is gonna murder the hell out of you if you get around to him, and you're just trying to survive in whatever ways are available. You know, you're trying to accomplish map objectives so that way you can escape. You're trying to hide away from the killer, and it was a really fun experience, and it's coming out June 14th. It's only a month away, so this was really neat. I played it like 3 times, and 2 times were survivors, and 1 time was a killer. So I got a lot of the experience of the game. I got to survive as a survivor, I got to get killed as a survivor, and I got to murder everyone as a survivor. I guess the only thing I didn't really get to experience was being the killer and some people getting away, but that's because the killer line was a long one. That one, because you were only 1 killer per game, and the games could last anywhere between like 10 to 20 minutes. Some of them are short. My killer game was like 3 to 5 minutes. They did not last that long, those poor people. But the game, it was very interesting, and I have a little bit of footage in the background where I was playing. It was the only one I really got to record of myself playing, but it was probably the most interesting round I got. It was the most tense one I got as a survivor, because I was solving the generators. I even had one of the generator solves, or not really solved, but one of the generator repairs, as one of my survivor friends was getting hanged literally to my left, just like right next to me. And as soon as the generator was turned on, I booked it. And I was doing some mad jukes on him, but eventually the killer did get me, and that was super unfortunate. But oh, I am really looking forward to playing this with friends. And in the full game, there's actually going to be more than one kind of killer. In the version they had at PAX, he kind of had a trapper loadout where he could put down bear traps and things like that, but the other killers are obviously going to be different, and then there's whole lots of different perks and level ups that can be had. So it'll be an interesting game, especially since it's only like $20, and if you pre-order right now, it's like $17, $18. So it's gonna be interesting. I definitely recommend checking it out in the description below. In fact, most of everything I'm gonna be talking about, you can find the links for them below. So moving on to our next title, we're gonna be talking about Hard West, which was kind of like XCOM in the West, not really against aliens, but it's a top-down strategy game. And this one was a little bit weird for me to get into, just because like I was watching a remastered version of Hard Reset, which was this first-person shooter game, and the poster/sign was like right next to it. I was like, huh, this doesn't look like a Western. This looks very familiar. Isn't this Hard Reset? And then I actually like turned and went, oh, Hard West is that game over there. I went over, checked it out, and had a very interesting time. If I hadn't played like XCOM a couple of months ago, this definitely would have been more like, oh, that's very neat. But knowing, having played XCOM, it caught my interest. I sat down and oh boy, I got my butt kicked. I had 3 guys and 2 of them got murdered relatively quickly as I was learning how the mechanics work. And I only won because the last guy I had left was the main character, who his story, at least from the demo, was basically he got killed, his wife was murdered, and he came back from hell or whatever for revenge. And because of that, he had some shadow powers, like legitimate, literal shadow powers. If you were hidden in the shadows, you would go invisible and you would regenerate health. And I used those to my advantage to basically play a really long game of just pecking away, a long game of attrition that I eventually won out, because regenerating your health is great. But this was very interesting, and it's actually already out. It's a game that I looked up on Steam, and I was like, okay, when is this going out? Oh, it came out a while ago, and so I'm actually probably going to check out the game for a Let's Play sometime in the future. So check that out in the description below. We're going to be moving on to the next one. The next game that I checked out, well, I mean, I'm not really doing this in chronological order, but it was the next game I checked out immediately after Hard West, is Zombie Night Terror. This was in that same area directly next to it, and this really caught my interest. If you've been watching my channel for a long time, then you know that I kind of like zombie stuff. Not in like an obsessive kind of way, but I like zombie media. It's very interesting to me. And so this super caught my eye, especially as I watched more and more of the game, and then actually got to play it for like 30 to 40 minutes. It was a really long, or I got to sit down for a very long time to play it. It was also really nice to be able to sit for so long. But this game was basically like zombies, or not zombies with, zombies with lemmings. No, it's basically like lemmings, but with zombies. And if you've never played Lemmings, then let me just switch this around for you. So it's basically kind of this controlling, manipulating kind of game where you're making zombies and you're mutating them, or you're directing them around the level, so that way they can kill all the humans and transform them into zombies, and so you can get more and more and more. And it was very interesting because as you progress, the game gradually got harder with more and more types of scenarios for you to be able to go to. I didn't even check out the majority of the ones they had available, but it was interesting. You know, there was a lot of being guided around by a developer because I was very bad at it, but you know, there were a lot of scenarios where, okay, there's a lot of dudes with guns in here, make a person into a tank and then make them run into the room so that way they can mow through all the guys with guns. Or okay, that's not working out, let's send a zombie, make them crawl, and then have them explode around the group. It was interesting. There's a lot of different choices for it, and a little bit of the story was seen there that was very humorous, and I'm interested in checking this game out whenever it comes out, which according to Steam is spring 2016, which, considering we're about to hit summer, I guess it means more around now. It doesn't really have a date. Another game I checked out was Just Shapes and Beats, and I played this kind of in co-op with one of the developers and Smarty. It was the first game we actually checked out when we got to the show floor, and this was basically, at first I thought it was going to be a rhythm-based game, and I'm not really good or great at rhythm-based games, so I was like, okay, alright, this will be interesting. But it actually turns out that it is a bullet hell survival kind of game with a lot of badass beats going on. So you have really funky music going, I say funky. You got some really interesting music playing in the background, and as the music's ramping up, more and more stuff is getting shot at you, and you kind of have to dodge around. And the mechanic of the game is, yeah, you can, if you dodge while you're dodging, you have invincibility frames. And so after, you know, just playing Dark Souls 3, I was very much the mindset of, ooh, I like dodging to avoid damage. I didn't do good, but it was really interesting, kind of like learning the different patterns and learning how to dodge everything and seeing where all the bullets are coming out of. Because I'm not really good at bullet hell games. I've never really played a lot of them. So this was nice, especially in co-op, because in co-op, if I died, somebody could try and pick me up, and if they died, I could pick them up. And so there was a lot of kind of like leapfrogging our lives around, or just we all died and had to get sent back to a checkpoint. So this was really neat. Another game that I checked out with Smarty, and actually with Aphex and a couple of fans, was Due Process. And this is a game that I've actually sort of had my eye on. Like, I've seen a couple of the trailers, seen a couple of people play its early alpha versions, and this is a really neat game. So it's a multiplayer shooter, or it's a tactical multiplayer shooter kind of in the same vein, I guess you would say, like Rainbow Six. You have an attacking side trying to infiltrate a building while the defending side tries to survive. And it's a really interesting game just because of all the different kind of mechanics that go into it. So not only can the attackers breach in from the doors or the different walls, depending on the procedurally generated map layout, but you can also like lay out plans by opening up a map and drawing on it. And, you know, minus the fact that every single game is going to have people drawing dicks on it, it was actually a really cool mechanic. It was like, ooh, I can really let out my tactical side by saying, hey, let's have 3 guys go over here, let's have 2 guys go over here. It was very, very neat, except for the couple of times that our communication kind of suffered. It was actually, it was pretty funny in hindsight. But like in the last game that we had, the last round we had, I told Smarty and another fan to breach through one of the back doors so that way we could have a crossfire on the enemies. And so it was 2 people going to that one door and 3 people going to another. And when the round finally got started and we were about to breach, I noticed 3 other people around me, which means there was 4 people at one door rather than 3. And I said, okay, who doesn't know how to count? And then seconds later, we just all got murdered. And who knows, maybe if Smarty had gone around to the other side, we could have survived. I don't know, but it was a really neat experience. And I'm interested to play it in its future builds, especially since the build that we got to play is actually, it looks there's a trailer running by. It looks like it's not modeled up as much as where they've gotten right now. And so it's one of those kinds of experiences where the early version looks like super simple and blocky, but the later versions are actually really, really nice to look at. Another game that I got to check out for a pretty decent amount of time, I actually beat the demo for this, was Shock Tactics. And this is another strategy game in the same vein as like Hard West or XCOM. And this was interesting because, and I think the most interesting part for it, at least in that demo, was that the guns actually were treated like they were automatic weapons. You know, in XCOM, if you had a guy with a minigun fire, he could miss, and that was it. He missed for that entire turn. But in this game, you know, if you had a 20% chance to hit and your guy fired, a couple of your bullets might actually land. You might still do damage. And so it kind of created this atmosphere of going back and forth and still being able to land attacks even if you weren't in the most advantageous position, and that allowed you to be very, very aggressive. Or you could still try to do things smart and get those flank positions, and then suddenly you're landing even more damage because 95% of an automatic weapon hitting somebody is devastating. But this was interesting. There were a lot of different mechanics going on. We had like AI controlled partners that you could summon down and just have them bum rush the enemies while they were getting distracted. You can get into better positions. And I was told that, and from a couple of trailers that I saw, there's actually going to be base building as well. So in the overmap, in between missions, there's actually going to be base buildings. And I don't know how that's going to play out exactly, but it is nice to actually say, okay, well, I need to protect this base. It adds tactical depth to the in-between map, rather than just kind of being like, well, I fly around everywhere, then maybe put down a couple of structures inside my flying base. Now, this is actual bases on the map, and you gotta hope that you can keep them secure, otherwise you have things get lost, such as soldiers, or probably resources as well. And so this was neat. This was very, very neat. I guess the last game that I got hands-on with, and this one was very, very short, they were kind of like shuffling people in very quickly, was the Gears of War 4 multiplayer. And there's nothing really special to say about this one. Actually, it plays like Gears of War. It legitimately, we got our asses kicked in the first round because a guy got behind us with a shotgun, just like instant murdered all of us. And so in the next round, I told my teammates, I was like, okay guys, we need to play this like Gears of War. We need to use our shotguns, and just only the shotguns. I literally told them, let's only use shotguns, and we just completely wiped the other team. Like, no longer were we getting our butts kicked. And in this particular game mode, it looked like, I don't know if they've had in other Gears of War, because I've never really played a lot of Gears of War, but in this game mode, it was one where, like, if you died, you could be brought back to life if your team actually got a kill on the enemy team. And so it was like a little bit of a back and forth, trying to see who would be the final survivors of the rounds. And it was us. We won. We kicked some butt. And that was really about it. In terms of like games I actually got hands-on with, those are about it. Everywhere else I looked, there were usually like really long lines. I mean, even for like Dead by Daylight, I sat in line for about 2 hours just to play it for that third time. And I sat there with Aphex. We were gonna play it with Smarty as well, but he wasn't there, so that was fine. And so there were a lot of really long lines, and so I spent a lot of my time just kind of like walking around and looking over shoulders, and then wishing my legs weren't dying. But it was fun. I got to, you know, meet a few fans, hang out with friends, and get really excited for what's coming, because a lot of the indie games that I saw were really awesome. A lot of the AAA games that I saw were really awesome. You know, I even had a chance, I was maybe gonna go play Mirror's Edge Catalyst, but then I was like, oh, you know, it's coming out soon, and I don't want spoilers, because there were actually cutscenes in the demo that you were able to play there. So I was like, yeah, I'll wait. But yeah, this was really cool. You know, there were little things like there was the Overwatch Uber. I never got a chance to ride, and that makes me so sad. But there was an Overwatch Uber where the people who could drive you around were in like these decked out cars, blinked with Overwatch logos and things like that. And even a couple of them, I think, had people cosplaying as Overwatch characters. And so I saw Soldier 76, a lot of divas. In fact, I saw a lot of Overwatch cosplays playing Overwatch itself, which I guess is to be expected. But this was very fun. Sorry for taking a very long time to get this video out. I'm sorry that I didn't really do any like real vlogging stuff. I still gotta nail down that whole talking to myself in public thing. I just always end up walking around and recording B-roll rather than just kind of like turning the camera to myself and be like, hey, so I'm standing and blocking a bunch of people, and there's this cool game behind me, look at it. All right. But it was still fun, and hopefully in the next convention I can do a little bit of a better job covering games and maybe even get some direct footage for you guys rather than just kind of having to take trailer footage or crappy camera quality stuff. But hey, you know what, whatever. I definitely recommend checking out the description below for links to all the games that I ended up playing and talked about, especially for credits for if I needed to get direct footage from, say, the developers or something. But thank you guys for listening. I will see you guys later, or maybe even at the next PAX. Yeah!